All right, good evening. I'm going to call this business meeting May 14th, 2015 to order. Would you all please rise for the flag salute? Roll call.
Director Miller.
Are you sure?
Director Miller, yes, you're here. Director Winskill.
Here.
Director Vial.
Here.
Director Hines.
Here.
Student Representative French.
Here.
Student Representative Bernarte.
Here.
And Director Ushka is excused. She has a work commitment this evening. Item number 1, adoption of the agenda.
I move adoption of the agenda for this evening. Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 4-0. Item number 2, recognition of staff, students, and community.
Thank you, President Hines and members of the board. We're here to honor the hard work of the leadership and the staff at Jadroni Middle School, one of our officially recognized innovative schools in our district portfolio. For some context, let me provide a little bit of the inglorious history. In 2010, the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction identified Jadroni as a federal school improvement grant school because it ranked among the lowest performing schools in the state. As part of the school improvement process, you might remember that the district changed the leadership team and decided to have Jadroni pursue International Baccalaureate Middle Years Program status. That specific program, taught in schools around the globe, prepares students with the intellectual, personal, emotional, and social skills needed to live and work in an evolving, globalized world. You also may recall at the time that the thinking was that not only would Jadroni rise to just an acceptable academic level, but it would eventually offer one of the most rigorous middle school experiences in the region. To get IB status requires a multi-year process of training, implementation, and scrutiny from the IB governing body. Well, last year, Jadroni had its review visit by representatives from the International Baccalaureate Organization, and last month, I'm proud to report, Jadroni received its IB authorization and now is an official IB Middle Years Program World School, only one of 6 in the state of Washington. To honor the dedication, hard work, and devotion to our students, I'm pleased to introduce to you Principal Billy Harris and key members of his Jadroni team. Billy?
Thank you, members of the board, folks here. I wanted just to take a moment and talk briefly about some of the things in our history. As Mr. Vopel shared, we were designated as a 6th school in 2010. What that meant at the time was we were in the bottom 5% of the state. Recently, we just received the Achievement Index scores that showed us at 75% in the state of Washington compared to all other schools. So we went from the bottom 5% to in 75% out of all the schools in the state of Washington. Really proud of that work, and I would say that it is due part to the foundation that IB had. I remember in 2010 when we took a bunch of our staff across the border to Vancouver, Washington, and I learned for the first time what it could be to be an IB World School and what it meant to be an IB student. Part of that was building character, teaching our students what it's like to be a student, teaching our students the value of caring, perseverance, grit, the idea of being a communicator and being principled. So through that process, we were able to rise and achieve that. Not only have we been 75% above other schools in the state, we're also 85% above all other middle schools in the state, and we're the second highest performing middle school of of schools that have higher than 70% of free reduced lunch, only beat out by one other school in Seattle. So again, I thank the foundation that IB provided. I really thank the district for allowing us the opportunity to build a schedule to make that happen, to provide adequate staffing to make that happen, because I got to say it's a beast to try and pull all these pieces together, because IB's design really is to make a whole child, which fits right in line with our initiatives in this whole child initiative to build that student, for that well-rounded student that we all want to see all of our students be here in Tacoma. So we're really proud of the work that we've done, and I have to say that due to the hard work of our teachers that committed themselves to push hard to make IB a part of it, they've really pushed to say, what does it take to give a student, to teach them what success feels like, to taste success for the very first time. So again, we're proud to say that from bottom 5% to upper 85% of schools in the state, we're really proud of that. So with that excitement of becoming an IB school and that journey, I want to introduce you to a couple folks. First is Tim Newberger. He's currently a wonderful science teacher at our school in 8th grade, and he's going to share a couple things, and Kat Appleby will also be sharing some things. They're both teachers at our school. Ms. Rainbolt is our Dean of Students, and she is our IB coordinator this year. Chris McCrumman is our assistant principal. And before I let them speak, I also want to thank the leadership of Zeke Edmond, who also helped provide this foundation, as well as some others that has gone to other schools to make some change. Sue Gregory, Kim Messersmith, Donna Basil, Rachel Van Fleet, and I also want to thank Janet Gates Cortez for helping support us this year. So this is Tim Newberger.
Okay, thank you, and good evening. So I wanted to talk about, so we've been doing IB, but I don't know if it's at quite the level that I would like to see it. So we're talking about developing really something to really make next year go. And we're talking about being an integrated IB unit. And we have our vision statement at Geodrone is ready for high school, ready for life, and ready to change the world. And so we wanted to focus on that part of to change the world. We do a lot of focusing on high school and so on, but we wanted our kids to look at to change the world. And so we came up with this idea of a semester-long integrated project around this idea, this question, the central question, how do we build a society where everyone thrives? And that's the question we want our kids to focus on, is first of all, what thrives means to them, but also how can we encourage themselves and within our world to thrive. And so we're hoping to take our different grade levels, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and break it down where the 6th graders are looking at their individuals or families, 7th graders are looking at their more local community, and 8th graders are looking more at the world to try and answer that question. So all the subjects are intended to be involved in this project. Each project will allow students to research a problem or a challenge which intrigues them. So it's their idea that what they're going to be looking for and how they can design a solution to that problem. This project is what IB is all about. It allows students to thrive. It gives opportunities for students to use what IB calls their approaches to learning, which are really just learning skills. And I'll just mention them real quickly. They're thinking skills, research skills, social skills, communication skills, and self-management skills. This project is still in the planning stages, but the final outcome will include a physical representation of student work, a digital component using Google Docs, and a celebratory night to share student work with the Geodrone community. We're very excited about this project and how it will impact our students. And so next January when this happens, we'd like to send you invitations to come and join us. Okay? Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Kat Appleby, and I came to Geodrone from Hunt Middle School, which was also an authorized IB MYP World School. So for me, the journey of Geodrone has been especially meaningful. I'm just tonight, though, I'm talking about the 8th grade community project that is an IB MYP requirement. Every 8th grade student will participate in some kind of community project and then report on it. It involves writing a presentation, and every 8th grade, well, we call it year 3. Every year 3 student around the world does a community project. So it really makes this connection for the kids, for every other student in MYP in year 3. So we're really excited about that because hopefully we'll be able to piggyback on the interdisciplinary unit, and because it is the kids' passion, whatever cause they're going to be passionate about, that they'll be able to do their project on. So look forward to that as well. Thanks.
Would you all please come up so we can thank you?
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
President Hines and members of the board, Tacoma and scores of other school districts and educational organizations in our state are members of the Washington Schools Risk Management Pool, a leader in self-insurance coverage. The pool aims to meet the very unique property and liability protection needs of Washington's public schools. Recently, the pool notified us that our school district received a perfect score on our 2013-14 Facility Management Risk Assessment Survey, and a perfect score earns the district a discount on contributions for coverage. The district has received a perfect score in years past as well. Tonight, Brenda Austin, a risk consultant with the Risk Pool, is here to provide additional background on the honor and recognize the district and General Counsel Shannon McMenemy for the work. Please welcome Brenda Austin.
It's my pleasure to be here tonight to present your plaque for the 2013-14 Risk Assessment Survey. This year's survey, as Dan said, was facility risk management, and it covered such topics as key management and facility access, facility use agreements, vandalism, theft, and arson, preventative maintenance, and hot works and sprinkler impairment. Just to show you the amount of work that goes into it, this is the binder that Shannon gives to me for the documentation. And it was assembled by a team that she put together. And I'm always impressed when a district puts together a team because it shows a commitment to risk management district-wide. It's not just one person sitting behind a desk putting things in a binder. The whole group got together. I met with them. They all worked and had their own projects to contribute. And so that's a compliment to Shannon for being able to put together that team that works so well together. As Dan said, you get a discount on your next year's premium. The board just voted for 5.75%. So you get this nice plaque. But last year, you also received a $138,778 discount on your premium. So I'd like to present this to Shannon and give you back your binder.
As Brenda indicated, this is definitely a team event every year. This year, this particular risk assessment involved a substantial amount of work from Director of Security Miguel Villahermosa and Deputy General Counsel Felipe Mendez, who took the yeoman's job of the Key and Security Access Initiative, which involved changing how the district and tightening how the district accesses keys and cards to everyone within the district. Other key members of the team include Ken Wilson, who took on many of the facilities-related tasks, as well as Michaela Reeder, the district's public records officer and paralegal, who helped me wrangle the binder together. Additionally, Leslie Knorr from the Workers' Compensation Office was a key team member as well. So it is always an interesting event to go through and analyze how we're doing on these issues of risk. Next year's is going to be very significant. It's on protected classes, and so it involves a much larger team this time, including several members of our Human Resources Department. So we look forward to attaining another perfect score next year, which I believe would be a perfect score in every year that the risk pool has had this program.
Would you please come up so we can thank you?
I'm not bringing the binder, it's staying down here.
All right, item number 3, members of the public wishing to address the board. Superintendent, do we have anybody tonight?
Yes, we have two citizens who would like to speak regarding the Next Move program, and I think that they want to come up together, right? Luann League and Joshua Nicholson.
And before you begin, just to remind you, school board members encourage public participation. Your input is appreciated. If you would like to address the school board, follow these steps. Complete a citizen's request to speak card, which is located at the back of the auditorium. Submit the card to the school board secretary prior to the start of the meeting. Cards submitted after the public comment period is ended will not be considered at this session. The superintendent will call your name when it's your turn to address the school board. Please speak into the microphone. You will have up to 3 minutes to share your comments. There's a clock right over there. At the 1 minute mark, you'll hear a ding, and then at the end of your time, you'll hear a second ding. Please begin.
Hi there. My name is Luann League. This is Joshua Nicholson, and we are here to talk to you about our success with the Next Move program with our SOTA students. So Josh has voted me to talk first, and I've taken some time to prepare. I'm not the greatest public speaker, so I'm going to read from my notes, if that's okay. So I'm a child life assistant from Multicare Mary Bridge Children's Hospital here in Tacoma. My role entails coordinating with our volunteers to provide age-appropriate and developmentally appropriate activities to our patients and families. We believe in family-centered care in our hospital, encouraging our staff and volunteers to work with the whole family. We are excited to be partnering with the School of the Arts in the Next Move program. This has been a win-win relationship for both of us. It's a win for Next Move students such as Joshua, because he's getting the opportunity to experience what it might be like to work in a professional environment in the medical field. He engages with both staff and families, learning a variety of interpersonal skills and rounding patient rooms, providing activities as needed, and supporting other requests from staff or family members. Experiencing professional interactions, learning about boundary guidelines, and recognizing how to choose appropriate activities for our patients are just a few of the many skills Joshua is acquiring while in his role as an inpatient volunteer. It's a win for our inpatient area and the child life department because we get the opportunity to engage and foster relationships with students in our community like Joshua who may be interested in a career in the medical field. Hopefully, we can both nurture and provide these students with some tools and skills needed to move forward to make the next move with career goal decision making, including the possibility of deciding whether or not this is the right choice. This is truly a phenomenal opportunity to work with our future generation of doctors, nurses, CNAs, social workers, and other medical specialists. The list is endless. To engage with them, share what we know, and learn what we can from each unique experience. The possibilities are endless, and the journey has just begun. Specifically, speaking about Joshua, his desire to be successful, his motivation to learn, and ambitious nature to be here even while on holiday breaks has helped him grow tremendously both professionally and personally. His friendly demeanor and positive attitude are an asset to our department. Thank you all for your time. And we thank Joshua and the Next Move program. Your turn.
Hello. Hello, my name is Joshua Nicholson. When I was 6 years old, I was the victim of an almost life-taking car crash that resulted in 8 surgeries until as recent as 2 years ago, when I underwent cranial surgery in the hospital. These surgeries have saved my life several times, leaving me with physical scars that I have been bullied with because I do not look normal. When I came home from school, I would go and cry to my dad because kids called me Frankenstein on a daily basis. He told me that it's okay, they don't understand. Due to the bullying that I endured for years and my experiences in the hospital, I realized my gift of life, and so I decided that I did not want other kids to go through what I went through. During my junior year of high school, I had the opportunity to participate in the Next Move internship program as a class period, where I gained professionalism skills for my post-high school plan to seek a career in the nursing field in pediatrics. Over the past year, I have had the amazing privilege of doing an internship with Mary Bridge Children's Hospital with the Child Life Department under the supervision of Luann League, who has helped me gain skills in child interaction, health, and professionalism. After the death of my dad over the holidays this year, I was granted the truly beautiful experience of caressing a baby's life in my arms and the warm feeling of vomit rolling down my gown. I would have never been able to have that experience in a classroom, and I'm glad I was able to get that opportunity, because now I know I can handle the puke, honestly. The Next Move internship program gave me the affirmation that I still want to be a nurse. Thank you, Tacoma School Board, for allowing me to begin pursuing my post-high career goals of becoming a pediatric nurse, where I will change the lives of many children with hopes that they will not go through what I went through. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to intern with the Next Move.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again. This is a program you need to keep.
Please do. It really helped me, and it helps a lot of students. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much.
We have two more speakers that turned in a card speaking with the same subject regarding Diego Hunter, Heidi Leeper, and then Diego Hunter.
And,
Okay.
and I'll remind you that during public comment not to make any personal comments, and I'll be looking to our general counsel for guidance on that.
Hi, my name is Heidi Leeper. I went to Stewart Middle School in the year of '08 as a 6th grader, went to Lincoln High School, graduated in 2014, and now I'm completing my first year with a 4-year scholarship over at Pacific Lutheran University. I met Diego beginning of my 6th grade year. He was scouting for players for his AAU basketball team, and he coached for Tacoma Shine. And after he had asked my mom, told her about practice and paperwork, I attended my first practice in jeans because I didn't really know what basketball was about, but I figured, this is probably something I should probably get myself into. I practiced, kept going along the way, Diego became a mentor and my guide and a leader. He encouraged me not to try out for not only Stewart's basketball team, but also for soccer, volleyball, and track. And while Diego guided me, he was keeping me off the streets and out of trouble, which I could have easily slipped into. After 3 older siblings have dropped out, before they even reached high school. Diego was and has always been there for me when I had family problems or even financial problems. When I played AAU for him, there were many times where my parents would forget to pick me up, but he always got me a ride from a teammate. And I just want to emphasize that Diego has always been there for me, He guided me, been a leader and a mentor, and I honestly don't think I would be where I am today, mainly because, without him, I wouldn't have played basketball. I probably wouldn't have stayed off the streets. I probably would have gotten into trouble, and he, indirectly, without me knowing it, kept me out of that stuff by doing other things. Thank you.
Mr. Hunter.
I'm Diego Hunter. I'm being voted on for my employment today. I run a nonprofit organization which is called Tacoma Shine. I've been doing it for about 12 years now. I work diligently in the community for about 20 years. I worked at Stewart Middle School for 9 years, for the last 9 years, and I had a disgruntled parent that got upset for the first time in 20 years and got upset because of her. We have suspended her daughter off of our basketball team for numerous of fights and issues. And so she went to the district and she told them that I engaged in illegal activity, illegal drugs. And so I guess they ran with it, and it's a sad case because they interviewed 15 other of my teammates and people in the organization, and nobody said anything like that. They declined that. They told everybody that wasn't true. I guess they're basically running off of this one person's, from what she said. And I'm just here to clear my name because I've worked so hard to gain the respect of my community, to be involved in my community. I work with so many kids. Right now, I even run a leg up program helping high school kids get into college, making sure they do ACTs and SATs to get on the NCAA eligibility, because we have a lot of athletes that aren't really doing that to get to the next level. So I run that program also. And this has put a damper in our organization. It's kind of put a halt on some things because we're trying to rebuild again with this situation that happened, because everybody's asking questions, and we've actually been quiet about it until the investigation went through. So, it's a sad situation. So I'm here to clear my name of that and to ask you to please understand that I'm not that type of person. The words that we're saying are not true at all. I work very hard in our community, and I work very hard for our youth and our community, and I would love to keep doing that. And I wouldn't want something like this to hurt, what I've worked so hard to become. Thank you.
Thank you. That's
All
all
right,
the public speakers.
Okay. Item number 4, superintendent's report.
For the superintendent's report tonight, we're going to ask Dr. Joshua Garcia to report on his work revising and renewing our strategic benchmarks.
Thank you. First and foremost, this is the work of the district, so I thought we'd start with just a very quickly an overview of where we've come from to get to tonight and where we potentially will go after tonight. So first piece, looking back, and I don't have my glasses, so I have to click on this as we go through. Forgive me. Just a little back, we started this work a little bit before 2010, ultimately when we had some of the lowest graduation rates we had. In 2011, we had a teacher strike, and the school board at that time really launched the course we're on with our 4 broad strategic plan goals: academic excellence, early learning, partnership, and safety. In 2012, you had a new superintendent, you had some new board members, and benchmarks were developed to define success of goals, and we were also recognized as an innovation zone. In 2013, your innovation policies were developed and adopted. In 2014, you celebrated some of the highest graduation rates that we've ever had historically since they started calculating them the way that they currently do. And you as a board voted to maintain these goals and revise the benchmarks as needed. In 2015, we are in the process of revising those benchmarks, and then in 2016 through 2020, you will continue your continuous improvement cycle that you have established through the strategic plan board policy actually itself. A little bit about the constituent engagement. In 2012, click the slide, thank you. You went through a process, an extensive accordion process that included community, staff, city, state, and national leaders. We hosted board business meetings and work study sessions that led to the current formal adoption of the current benchmarks. And so this is really important because when you charged us with revising the benchmarks, you went through a very extensive process back in 2012 to get to these original benchmarks as well. In 2014 and 15, we started with a little bit of a different process. We started with the public first, and we surveyed, a survey went out to every family, staff member, and all of our community partners. We have a master list of community partners that we went out there. We collected that data and shared it with staff. So we said to our community, what do you value? What do you think is working? What are those benchmarks that you'd like to see revised? And we repeated this accordion process, but we brought that back to staff. Staff took the input. They added their own thoughts. They shared their recommendations with principals. That data was collected, recommendations were made, and then we took that back out to the community, and we had an independent consultant working with community focus groups to say, where are we at based on not only the survey data, but also what the staff's saying and hear some proposed things. Focus groups made recommendations, staff processed those recommendations, revisions were made, and it's shared again with community groups and buildings again. So this in and out of the district throughout the community. Revisions were made and recommendations are being brought to you tonight as the first reading in the board. So who did we invite to participate? You can see that we invited the city, state legislators, the governor's office, federal representatives, OSPI, the Federal Department of Ed, Puyallup Tribe, parents, staff, business partners, higher education representative, Tacoma Public School, community-based organizations, that master list of all of your formalized partners, the Foundation for Tacoma Students, Foundation for Tacoma Students partners, in addition, thought partners such as the League of Education Voters, EdWeek, STAND, ASCD, a variety of others, individual community leaders, religious leaders. Now, not everyone responded, but everyone had multiple opportunities to participate. What did we hear? Overall, this is what we heard from our community. TPS is improving. There is a positive intent to keep the general focus, the specific benchmarks, and keep moving forward. Benchmarks can be overwhelming. When you ask an individual to look at the totality of all the benchmarks, it was difficult for them to say which is the most important. And a lot of that had to be was where were they representative? So if I was an elementary parent, it was difficult for me to, and I never had students in high school, to determine is graduation more important than the verified acceptance letter or the industrial certification? But the general intent was there's trust being built and the keep moving forward with that. There was a general theme that they did need to be prioritized. So they reaffirmed your approach to say, have some priority benchmarks for the next few years. Not to let go of the other things that are a part of your benchmarks, but yes, prioritize. Continue to address the disparity gaps. That was a common theme that came from a variety of groups. Don't lose that focus of looking at gaps in there. And focus on behavior and discipline issues versus my words, a convoluted approach of discipline and academics tied into one specific benchmark. So that was another general piece. What else did we hear? We heard the climate survey was problematic. Make questions more relevant. Survey participants by school vary widely. Report positive and negative responses. We heard improve engagement. It was very important for a number of the parents and the parent groups for a recognition that said engagement is not just by volunteers. And so we really want to know that folks to know that we don't believe that that's the sole definition of their engagement. We know that parents are engaged by sitting down and doing homework and being champions for their kids at home. Engagement's about getting their student a good meal. There's various forms of that, but this is one indicator of that. They wanted us to focus on improving ways to engage working parents. That was one of the, when I say themes, there was enough groups that agreed to that was something that we need to continue to work with. And then provide the public with consistent, timely progress or data and communication. So they appreciated the progress reports. They want us to continue that. They also want us to find ways to put all that data, in my words, street language. You know, Superintendent San Antonio talks about the stories that we're able to talk from one yard to the next, over the fence. And they really want us to continue to work and say, so this is great, there's a lot of data here, but what does this mean for the child and how do we improve that? Here's some overview of some recommendations, and I'll take you into the specific benchmarks. It's priority benchmarks for academic excellence around graduation. For partnerships, welcoming environment, parents supporting student success, and positive responses to climate survey. In early learning, third grade reading and math. In safety, percentage of students with no exclusionary discipline, percentage at the elementary, middle, and high school. Some that they said needed to be removed, and when I say they, the combination of that accordion process. Eligibility and readiness, percentage of meeting higher education requirements. Really, in the context of that is there's other ways that that's being measured. Verified acceptance letters in the next institution is a way to do that. And what the staff found, as well as some folks that, whether they're community-based organizations that work with this work on a regular basis, there's so many different ways to meet that requirement that it's not really an effective way to say this is the percentage of students meeting that requirement by taking this set of courses, because there's really multiple ways to meet those requirements. Under partnerships, one that needs to be measured or removed, is the percentage of website visits. Really didn't think that was an effective use of partnerships in there. Early learning, there was none that we're recommending to be removed. And then under safety, the need for mini climates surveys themselves. So you'll see recommendations specifically in 5th grade math and reading, 8th grade math and reading, 11th grade the SBAC. In partnerships, you'll see changes in positive diversity on climate surveys, positive response to climate surveys. Under safety, you're going to see changes in discipline, climate survey percentages, and healthy youth surveys. In early learning, you're going to see, and when I say changes, the intent of the general original language is there, but you're going to see modifications in language adjustments, which you asked for, to improve the benchmark. So although the community say keep the general course, there were some great suggestions that were made that we would like you to consider in the modification of the language for the next 5 years. And that's preschool access, kindergarten readiness, 1st grade report cards, 2nd grade math and reading, and 3rd grade math and reading. And so tonight you will determine if ultimately, over the next few weeks, you will determine whether any modifications are needed, and hopefully you'll be taking formal action through the adoption process, which is scheduled to be a first reading tonight. We would take any feedback revisions between now and May 28th, and we would hopefully bring back a second reading for you and ultimately an adoption, which meets your original timeline. From there, staff would build infrastructure to report any changes. So if you decide that you're not ready to make those formal adoptions on that timeline, we would wait, obviously, to make any infrastructure changes. Staff will then develop the next evolution of communication plans. So working with the Public Information Office, how do we adjust? What is our new communication plan based on the new benchmarks, based on what we learned from community feedback? Staff would develop baseline data and bring goal recommendations to the board for consideration. And so we made some of that traction, and that was in last round, if you will. But the plan is in very quickly to start to bring baseline data, especially for the benchmarks that we have, to you, and then goal adoptions statements. And then I'll remind you, academic excellence rigor, for example, your benchmark met its goal, and we now are in a place whether or not we keep that and through that, and then do we renew the goal and develop action, which has implications for budgeting priority and a variety of others. And then from there, we would do the continuous improvement cycle that's implemented in policy 0100. And so very quickly, I'd like to take you through the actual benchmarks themselves and the recommendations. So we're going to switch presentations. And this will be available and linked to the board agenda so families at home can revise and see them as well. And so this just gives you a quick snapshot of the current benchmarks, and I'm not going to go we'll go through them very quickly. And if you read it from left to right, current benchmarks, the row is just our way of calculating it for folks to, if they want to provide feedback for you, they can refer back to and say row on 8 on your presentation. The specific goal or the priority, if it's a priority benchmark, it'll have an asterisk in it. Then it will be the recommended new changes are in red, if you will. And then the benchmark focus will tell you which specific grade levels or which schools, and then the frequency of proposed measurement. And so starting at the top, pre-K through 5 elementary schools, we're recommending you keep the social emotional learning plans. We're recommending in grades 5 that you remove the benchmark of MSP in 5 and 8 and replace that with the new SBAC scores as well. Now, when we say remove the benchmark, we still have a plan, if you adopt this, that we would keep the MSP data in the Learn More page, so we will keep that historical access for that information. You would still see the balance of report card standards are also there. Slight change, you'd see for math, for example, in 8th grade, students earning a C or higher in algebra or geometry, because we will no longer have end-of-course exams in those available for students. And so we still want to challenge all of our students. We don't believe that you've given us any indication of changing directions with giving our 8th graders algebra access or geometry access if they're higher levels And some students, to be honest with you, will be even above geometry. And so we want to make sure that we're articulating the balanced multiple measures approach between standardized test scores as well as report card standards. In grade 8, you would see that we are continuing to focus in on extracurricular activities. In grade 9, we continue to see the examination of course failures. In grade 10, you see a shift in standardized tests to align to the new state and federal requirements. You see the maintaining of graduation, and you see a recommendation that that is your priority benchmark. You see the continued focus in students re-enrolled from dropping out. You see a continued focus on prepared life after high school and verified acceptance letters. And as of today, we have record numbers of high participation in that. And our schools are really through the system, and we're getting better at recording that. Now, if you decided that you no longer wanted to do that, obviously we'd stop that work and move forward. You see a continued focus of extracurricular activities at the high school. As I mentioned, we have removed eligibility and readiness, continued focus on rigor, continued focus on industrial certification, and that's another exciting area where we are, through our tracking, you'll, in the next monitoring report, if you choose to keep this one, seeing increased numbers of kids earning industrial certification. A slight change in partnerships, number of registered voters versus percentage of registered, not voters, excuse me, volunteers. Number of registered volunteers. This is a slight change you're going to see in a couple different places. There's no way to capture the percentage of volunteers. And so we're looking at baseline and then how do we increase those numbers as a shift in there. Welcoming environments, we saw some duplication, so this is actually captured in item 38, and when we get to 38, I'll show you how. So it's not that we're removing participation from parents. You'll see it's captured in another area. So trying to address that overwhelmingness that the community is saying when you're looking at all those. So if there's benchmarks that are redundant, we tried to remove that redundancy. And under welcoming environment is there. We removed under effective communication, which is in line 30, which is that number of visits to the school website. Number 33, we looked instead of the percentage of community-based organizations, we looked at the number of community-based organizations. You see that also in, well, line 33, you see the number versus the percentage, and that is a proposed priority benchmark. Under 34, once again, number versus percentage. 35 is the same. And then you see parent positive responses to new community partners survey. That will be covered in 32 responses of each level of community partners in the survey. So you can see the redundancy piece. Under 4, engaged number of registered volunteers. We will still have that, but it will be covered in 26. Removing the redundancy in number 39. Number 41 would be a proposed priority benchmark, and it would be a shift from the percentage of preschool. You'll remember we've had the Puget Sound ESD used to collect percentage of free and reduced, but you never had a global number of what the total population is. I did do some research, and as of 2013, there's approximately 13,000 birth to age 5 kids in Tacoma. But it's not a dynamic report, so you can't get that on a yearly basis. So we're looking at the change instead of percentage being the number of students served. So approximately, if we ever got to a place where we were running around 2,500 preschool slots, that's a pretty safe number to know that all the cohort kids in any given year would be coming through the Tacoma Public Schools. Kindergartners, the same. Line 43, 44 remain the same. Line 43, which is captured in, ultimately is 43 and 44, are captured when you see the math competencies will be done at grades 1, 2, and 3. So we haven't lost them. We're just trying to find different ways to communicate them more effectively. Line 47 would become the priority benchmark, and that's percentage students scoring at each level in the SBAC. This is a different shift in all the SBAC scoring. We now have the ability to tell you and the community how many kids are at level 1, how many kids are at level 2, how many kids are at level 3, and level 4. And we've been able to do that in the past, but we believe that we'll be able to do that more effectively and efficiently. And we're asking that the benchmark being measured not only for the number of students that are meeting proficiency on the best aspect, but how many kids are moving from level 1 in 3rd grade to level 2 in 4th grade. And we believe that the technology will allow us to do that so that we can truly move to a growth model. And the last one, we are here, is you see that also in line 48. In line 50, we're asking that, or proposing that be removed. Another shift in line 51, which is a priority benchmark. In the previous model, we looked at students with more at grade level standard and a disciplinary fraction. And what we saw was that data was really clouding the real issue. We knew that we were having more significant discipline issues. But when you put that versus the number of kids that are actually, for example, not meeting standard, I think the report said it was under 2% of the total population. That is not what the community as well as the staff said. The real intent about safety is that are there behaviors that are resulting in exclusionary practices? And that's what we're proposing that we measure, is the number of students that are not being excluded from school from discipline and the number of students that are. And you see that in 51, 52, and 53. Line 54, which is completion of the climate survey, moving from once a year to every other year. We've talked about that and alternating that with the healthy youth survey. That is a shift, but that would also be a priority benchmark. You see that the number of staff as well as parents community completing that climate survey still remains as a measurement that we're recommending. And then when you see line 57, which is the last one, is the completion of the healthy youth survey every 2 years. So alternating with the climate survey, but a shift to really focus in on the safety and violence behaviors and the risk and protective factors such as depression and suicide at grade levels where these are addressed. So no longer how many people are just doing that, but are we moving the needle and are we providing program support for key issues? And the healthy youth survey is much more comprehensive, if you will, and measures a variety of other factors. So we're suggesting that you focus in on those. So those are the recommendations that you will see in your first reading tonight, but we wanted to take the chance to walk through them all in there. Any questions?
Questions or comments? Director Miller.
You. We talked about this a little while ago, and it's not necessarily a benchmark, but almost 6% of our students are McKinney-Vento. And we track the numbers and the mileage and all that. I don't see anywhere where we track their achievement. Excuse me. To see if they are successful. And with all their transitory nature and everything else, there's a big push on helping those families be more stable. But so is there a way to develop something there? You know, it's get to know your district better also.
It's a great question, and I apologize. Before I answer it, one other very important point, that's redundant in itself, right? Forgive me.
That's how important it is.
That's how important. This one is super duper important. Is the filters that you have already previously adopted around ethnicity, free and reduced lunch rates, special ed, ELL, those will remain for all of the specific benchmarks. Students that are served by McKinney-Vento would be a new filter. So if you, and it will have some potential limitations because of the way students are classified for McKinney-Vento from a historical perspective. But if you as a board would like that added as a board, you would take your formal action in this process and say, yes, and we want these benchmarks and this additional filter, and then you would vote on that adjustment, and through that process, we could add that.
I don't know if it needs to be added as an official benchmark, but it'd be nice to be able to track that
Just the
in a different way.
Okay.
You know, because I think that's important. Also, we made a request a while ago about poverty by census tract, and then achievement by census tract also. And I'm not sure where that's at. This was about a month ago. I'm seeing befuddled looks on faces.
We have.
I apologize. I had trouble hearing that poverty or
by census tract.
by zip code.
Was it zip code or was it okay?
which
Either way.
we have the ability to do some of that, but that is some extensive work that we have to then build the mechanisms.
Right, yeah. Once again, not necessarily a benchmark, but I think that's how we get to know our district better. How we're performing in different parts of our district and city. Also, another question is, do we have data regarding achievement by race using free and reduced lunch and not free and reduced lunch?
Yes, so currently on your benchmarks, you can filter that as a individual. So you, through the filtering process, you can click a specific ethnic code, free and reduced lunch rate, yes, no. You could then filter it and say, is the student special ed or not set the group of students? And the only caveat is once you get down to a small enough group size, for example, we don't, by federal law, allow that search availability to go any further. So all the current filters can be multiply, you can use the filters at multiple at a time.
I'm trying that right now, it's not working.
Then I will see what the technology is there. But you should have the availability to it.
Huh? Shift and select.
We'll walk through that.
Okay. Still not working all that great.
I will talk to our tech team and we will
Yeah.
figure out what's wrong.
The computer might not the same levels as.
Well, anyway,
I'll look into it.
okay. And when will the Healthy Youth Survey be released?
I don't have that specific date, but I'll find out for you.
Okay. Will that be before the benchmarks final vote? Because once again, it's get to know your district and making sure there's nothing that we've missed.
I don't have the date, so I can't answer whether or not when they'll be released or when you will choose to make the choice to move forward with this adoption or not. So if it comes before May 28th, or if you decide that you want to extend the adoption date, that would ultimately be up to you.
Okay, thanks.
Director Winskill.
Yeah, I know that the climate survey staff can answer those questions too, but I would really like to have a survey from the buildings, first of all, to survey pretty much what people think of Central School and how receptive they are by departments, which I think would be really helpful. And also, perhaps a climate survey every, maybe 20% of the schools every year to do an internal survey of their staff and how things are going in their building. And I'd like to see something like that. And if you just took 20%, you aren't really focusing on, I mean, I'm sure there's some places that you'd really like to have them more than others, but 20% would, every 5 years, we get through everybody.
So and for process, Mr. President, is this a specific benchmark you'd like proposed in addition to what you have?
Yes.
And so you ultimately, as a group, have to decide a recommendation of, three of you would approve that as a revised, or you would ultimately, as a group, decide, yes, add that, and we would then bring that back to you in revision. So I'm not sure if you'd like those specifically to be incorporated one by one.
Well,
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, I think so. One of the questions I had was on the timeline, May 28th. It feels like we're shoehorning this a little bit, that we're talking about it publicly, that we would be voting on it. At the very least, I'd like us to have an opportunity for a public comment. There would be no such opportunity under the proposed date. So at the very least, extending it out a couple of weeks, and then we do need to reach consensus on consideration of additional benchmarks that board members bring forward. I will remind the board that we did delegate this responsibility to the staff. So we had a study session and walked through the process, and that's when we decided that we did not want to do a full-blown rewrite of the strategic plan, that we did want to go through a revision process for the benchmarks, and we asked them to reach out to the community and engage the community, and then bring back the community and the staff's recommendations for us. So if we're at this point thinking that we may want to consider additional benchmarks, we would need to revise that process that we've agreed to.
We have 2 weeks for comment. So May 28th is the next meeting. Maybe that's where we have the discussion on adding any other benchmarks to this, if there are any added. Because once again, if 2 weeks of public comment, we want to honor that.
Director Vial, did you have a comment
Yeah,
on?
I don't have any specific questions, just a comment that I'm glad that we're moving to what I call absolute numbers for databases rather than percentages of what we think is a database. And I think that will help us as we move forward for better measurement and being better able to capture where we are. I think we're at a point now where we can establish those databases. I think, we've done impressive work in a very short period of time as we are already looking at revising. One thing I would like to caution is that I think too many benchmarks, what we're trying to measure sometimes gets lost in the process. And I think what we want to do is make sure that we have general benchmarks, and then underneath, we can adopt policies or smaller measurements to capture some of the things I think we're talking about, rather than getting such a long list, which was one of the questions. I noticed one of the comments that came back from the public, that keep our benchmarks fairly general, and then they get filled in through our action or policy changes. I mean, obviously, a great example of that is the academic acceleration policy that we adopted, and we use it how many kids are. So I would just caution us on not doing that. I'm very pleased with the format. I'm real pleased with where we are. One of the things I did like is that I think some of the working with the definitions, because I think some of our definitions, for example, when we're talking about engagement, what does that mean? And I think we could do a better job as we look back on the review of some of these to make sure, as you pointed out, Dr. Garcia, that our public understands the language that we use, because if they don't, then they're not going to understand what we're measuring. In other words, when I was in graduate school and writing my thesis and my doctoral dissertation, my advisor had great advice. He said, write as though you are writing to an educated audience, but not one in the field in which you're working. And I've always used that as a benchmark for myself. In other words, if a person who is not an educator, who does not work every day in what we're doing or with what we're doing, can they look at this and know what we're talking about? And I think that was one of the things that I saw in that, some of the things that you went through, some nuances through that. So that's one of the comments. Mine are more just making it more readable, making sure that people that we now have the ability to have good baselines. I was always kind of worried about a little bit about the squishiness, I know that's a great term, of the data that we had for preschool, because it is one snapshot in time. Now we actually have a baseline, we can grow from that. And so anyway, I think this is just good work, and I think this staff has done what we've asked them to do. I'll be interested to see what the comments are now. Thank you.
And Director Winsko, we got into timeline and process. I didn't know if you had any additional questions. I wanted to come back to you.
No.
Okay. I appreciate the report. I think it's consistent with what we've heard through the monitoring reports and the study sessions, the comments back from board members, public comments on the process. And I agree with Vice President Vial that the way that we articulate the benchmarks to the community is incredibly important. So plain language as much as possible, and that communication plan, I think, is going to be vital to make certain that there is an internal and external communication plan, and it can be different. We've got highly skilled, highly trained professionals within the district, and so the way we talk about it internally can be different than how we talk about it externally. I think we've erred on the side of talking about it professionally externally, and so we maybe aren't as transparent, and not even that we're intentionally trying to be not transparent, but it just doesn't translate. I had 3 areas that I was interested in. One, extracurricular activities at the middle school and high school level. Currently, it's just been athletics. Are we looking to expand that to include the arts, clubs?
Yes, all the ASB, any ASB recognized club and activity. So the team has actually built the infrastructure and data system to actually report that. So some lessons learned in the whole process is, which these benchmarks reflect, is a very thorough process to say, can we even measure that? And do we have the current infrastructure to do that? Or how much time and energy would it be able to do that? So we got some examples where, for example, number of Tacoma students that graduate from college in 5 years, number versus 6 years, and where is the data limitations, and can we do those? And so this process will be a journey. As we get better at it, there'll be those pieces. So to answer your question, yes. With that said, if you choose not to continue that benchmark, then we would not continue to put resources and support necessarily in that, because we're then diverting resources to something else.
I think that's an important benchmark as we talk about revising the climate survey and being more focused on what I've heard this board express is being more focused on engagement. And what we know from best practices and reports before the board, the value of the engagement element of extracurricular activities, that kids are better connected to school, they do better socially, less discipline issues, better academic performance. So I think that's an important one for us to continue to get better at, and recognizing that kids are involved and feel a connection to school, not just putting on that uniform, but showing up to play in an orchestra concert or in a drama performance or some sort of club activity. Social emotional learning, that plan just at the elementary school level. We had talked about elementary as the seed for SEL. Are there plans to require middle school and high school principals to come up with a social emotional learning plan?
In our training and implementation guide, yes. The benchmark itself, you would, if you choose to remain with it, would be visualized as you would be able to have access to that plan as a community member by school. So starting off with the elementary schools.
I'm not certain if I heard an answer in there. So
The benchmark has not been changed to be revised. So we looked at your original charge of modifications, trying to keep consistent to the original theme of that. So we are moving forward because it's a best practice with our middle schools and high schools.
okay.
We already started that work. For example, Truman and Mount Tahoma High School have already been along down the journey. So just because it's measured by the board didn't mean that that others couldn't join on. And so there's the implementation piece where that is, but the specific benchmark has not been proposed to be changed.
Okay, thank you for plain talking that for me. And then the last one, just around student discipline. Could you elaborate on how the 5D cultural competency professional development that's occurring in the Tacoma Whole Child Initiative, how that potentially is going to be connected to the student discipline benchmark?
So the benchmark, if you think of it this way, is the what. What are we measuring in there? And the Tacoma Whole Child Initiative is how do we support our students and staff in our community on limiting the number of exclusions. And 5D cultural competency is around how do you create a safe environment, a welcoming environment, an environment that allows access for all students, not just a few students. And so you have the combination of those. And so what the Tacoma Whole Child Initiative does in a very simplistic way is calibrates common definitions of what does respectful, responsible behavior look like, other behaviors that are expected, that if students are doing, they're less likely to have discipline issues in there. In addition to that, it calibrates the way that we have those definitions, how we look at data, as well as help staff build action plans to support students in that area. So for example, if we see a lot of discipline happening in the cafeteria, that's resulting in students having exclusionary activities, the Tacoma Whole Child Initiative provides a framework and supports and data to examine that's happening in the cafeteria. What are evidence-based practices that can support the cafeteria environment to reduce that behavior? And it's even more comprehensive than that, but that would be a quick summary.
Okay, thank you. I'll look to our student representatives. Do you have any questions or comments on the benchmarks? That's important. That's ground truthing. That's important to get that feedback from you. So thanks for sharing. Did I see a head? Okay. All right.
Just
Okay.
nodding.
Thank you.
So President Hines, what's the process then? Because for instance, Director Winskill had talked about possible addition and then public comment. So do we need direction from you?
Well, I would open it up for conversation.
I would recommend that you have that discussion when the item is introduced later in the meeting.
Point taken. So
Yeah.
we will have it further down the agenda. We
Okay.
can talk about timeline under the category of first reading of the benchmark.
Sounds good.
Okay. Duly noted.
Thank you.
All right, does that conclude the superintendent's report?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 5, the consent calendar.
I move approval.
Second?
Any questions or comments? And I will add, before we vote, there's a lot of items in the consent calendar. We've been given this well in advance. We've had an opportunity to read through it, to ask questions. So at times it may appear that we move through it rapidly, but we've done our homework on it. We're prepared to take the vote. Heard no questions or comments, so
Well,
I'll,
I have one question. Just
Director
Lister
Winskill.
is going to a conference for GLAD. So what does GLAD stand for?
Oh, jeez.
Guided language acquisition.
Acquisition.
You should be going to that one.
Nice try.
Very much so.
Is
Very
it like
much so.
the ELL? Is it,
It is a support for English language
Oh, okay.
learners, yes.
Okay, thanks.
And they were starting that when I was working there, so it's just a continuation. Yeah, we're gonna set it, Josh.
I will probably be on your next agenda item to add my participation.
We're looking for a program for you.
In reality is I will just need to be supported by the staff that go. That's probably a better use of the money.
all right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 4-0. Superintendent Santorno.
So one of the acts that you have just acted on positively in your consent agenda is the appointment of the new principal at Stafford. So I'd asked Shannon Graves to come up, introduce to you Shannon Graves. And Shannon, would you tell us a little bit about yourself? We're real excited to have you here.
Mr. President and members of the board, my name is Shannon Graves, and I am your candidate for Stafford Elementary School. And now I accept it. I'm very excited. I am a 5-year principal, and I come to Tacoma. I'm a resident, and so it's really nice to be able to work at home and invest in the community that I live in. Not quite sure exactly everything that you want to know. I am a mom. I'm a new grandma, and those are both very exciting things for me. And I believe in family, and I believe in kids. I see every student every day, and my mission and my motto is every student matters, every moment counts. And so I think that's what I bring to Stafford, along with an open mind and a vision that all students count.
Thank you so much, Shannon. We're so glad to have you here.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Great.
Thank you.
Item number 6, policy matters. No items under that category tonight. Item number 7, quarterly financial update.
Sorry. I would just like to have a quick moment to acknowledge Miss Patty Luat, our Director of Finance. She has, in addition to the great work that she always does, has also been acting as our financial analyst for the last several months now, as we're working to hire a replacement for someone who vacated the position to take a promotion in another agency. So she does great work, and she's doing 2 jobs now.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good evening, President Hines, members of the board, Superintendent Santorno, Deputy Superintendent Garcia, and student representatives. Tonight I have the pleasure of presenting to you where we are at second quarter and where we hope to be in terms of our projections going into year end, August 31st. As you can see on slide 1, we have data in there through February of 2015. Our budgeted annual average FTE enrollment is 26,714. This excludes 860 budgeted FTE for funded full-day kindergarten. Overall, enrollment is projected to be 775 FTE above budget. More than half, or 366 FTE, are at the elementary level. Looking from year to year, enrollment is 368 FTE higher than last year. And just like we saw in our projected numbers, 335 of these are at the elementary school level. Moving on to slide 2, our certificated staffing is projected to be 57 FTE below budget. Our certificated staffing is, our classified staffing is projected to be 59 FTE below budget. Overall, staffing levels have increased compared to last year. Now, as we look from year to year, certificated staffing increased 38 FTE from last year, and classified staffing increased 2 FTE from last year. Now on to slide 3. Our beginning fund balance was $1.1 million above budget, and our revenue is projected to be $3.2 million above budget. Of this amount, $5 million is projected to be in our state general purpose category, and that's for the apportionment, and that has to do with the additional students that we have. On our expenditures, we're projected to be $6.9 million below budget. It's important to keep in mind that our salaries and benefits savings are projected to be about $5.3 million below. Our ending fund balance is projected to be $11.2 million above budget. Now, as we move on to slide 4, we began the year with $8.7 million in assigned for future operations fund balance account. $5.4 million are budgeted in the assigned for future operations, so we're currently projected to save about $300,000 this year. As we look to the last slide, it illustrates our projecting ending fund balance, which is projected to be $11.2 million below budget. So as I spoke to a little earlier on the salaries and benefits, those are projected to be $5.3 million below budget. Our C&I program and our reservations for that are going to be about $3 million. Our miscellaneous categorical carryover in our schools carryover is estimated to be about $2.4 million, and other miscellaneous being about $500,000.
Thank you. And I would just like to point out that this illustration on the last page speaks to the fact that of the $11.2 million that we are showing as an additional savings for this year, that more than half or close to half of that is in reservations, so that it's not available for us to spend, and that of the dollars that are available for us to spend, most of those are associated with salaries and other vacancies that we see in the district, and that we're doing an analysis on what those vacancies look like and where they are. Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
I have a question for Mike.
Vice President Vial.
We can go back to, you mentioned I saw a star on the sheltered programs. Where are we in phasing those sheltered programs out and getting them into the overall budget?
So right now we have $4 million of fund balance programs. We're going to cut that by 2 years next year and 0 the following year.
Okay, good. So we are on track. I thought we were,
Yes.
but that's something that bugged me from the start, as you know. And so the sooner we get those into where they belong, the better. And I understand we have to phase it. You know that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. Item number 8, curriculum and instruction. Item 8A, approval of memorandum of understanding with the Pierce County Skills Center for 2015 summer satellite programs in Tacoma.
The Deputy Superintendent, on behalf of the Executive Director for Teaching and Learning, recommends the Board of Directors approve the memorandum of understanding between the Pierce County Skills Center and the Tacoma School District for summer satellite programs in Tacoma for summer 2015 session.
Move approval. Second?
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 4-0. Item 8B, approval of request for a renewal of the waiver for Soda and Sammy from the minimum 180-day school year.
The Assistant Superintendent for K-12 Support recommends that the Board of Directors approve Resolution Number 1991, the request for the renewal of a waiver for Soda and Sammy from the minimum 180-day school year for the 2015, 2016, 2016, 2017, and 2017, 2018 school years.
Move approval.
Second?
Any questions or comments?
And we do this on a regular basis, so.
Yes.
Nothing.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 4-0. Item 8C, approval of the Native American Children Formula Grant application to the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Indian Education.
I'll do this one too. Sorry, I'm all excited about the other one. I got it right. The Assistant Superintendent for K-12 Support recommends that the Board of Directors approve the submission of the Native American Children's Formula Grant application in the amount of $143,331 to the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Indian Education, and if funded, approve expenditure of funds according to appropriate guidelines.
Move approval.
Second?
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 4-0. Item 8D, approve purchase of additional K through 4 leveled literacy intervention materials for K through 4 elementary programs.
The Deputy Superintendent, on behalf of the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, recommends that the Board of Directors approve the purchase of leveled literacy intervention instructional material for grades K through 4.
I move approval.
Second?
Any questions or comments?
I just want to make a comment
Director
that
Winslow.
many teachers have told me that this is a good curriculum for them and for some of their students, so I'm glad we're purchasing this.
Thank you.
Vice President Vial.
I've had the same feedback. I was over at Sheridan a week ago for a little thing going on there, and two of the longtime reading and ELL teacher kind of caught me before I left and wanted me to know that they were seeing phenomenal growth with their kids through the use of this program, in some cases as much as 2 years. So they said they knew it was expensive, but they told me it was worth it. So, you know, we're on the right track when we're now giving our teachers the stuff they need to do what they can do best.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 4-0. Item number 9, business matters. 9A, approval of career and technical education technology purchase request to upgrade obsolete computers.
The Deputy Superintendent, on behalf of the Executive Director for Teaching and Learning, recommends the Board of Directors approve the Career and Technical Education Technology Purchase Request in order to upgrade obsolete computers.
Move approval.
Second?
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 4-0. Item 9B, approval of monitoring services for fire alarms.
The General Counsel recommends that the Board of Directors authorize the Superintendent to negotiate and award a 20-year contract to Fire Protection Incorporated for providing monitoring services for the district's fire alarms.
Move approval.
Second?
Questions or comments? I have a question, just 20 years?
We knew somebody was going to ask the 20 years. It is industry standard. Steve Demmel and I looked into it to confirm. It's because of the amount of overhead, the fiscal outlay for the vendor in equipping our buildings. And so it is in fact industry standard to have 20-year contracts for these types of things.
All right, thank you for the clarification. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 4-0. Item 9C, approval of school photographic services.
The Chief Financial Officer recommends that the Board of Directors authorize the Superintendent to negotiate and award a contract for photographic services to Leo's Photography.
I move approval.
Second?
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, so I have a
Director
question,
Winslow.
because when we first did this years ago, you know, it's a philosophical shift. Do we do this as a service to our students, or do we do this as a moneymaker? You know, this is coming to us now, so I'm not about to vote no at this point, but I think for the future, it's, you know, they take pictures of proms, and some of these things are pretty exorbitant for the students, so I just think that's something we need to look into. And I do see that the money goes to ASB, but I just think we should really kind of look into that. And is it affordable for families? Are they still buying the package deals? So It's just
And
for the
I would,
next time.
I would like to say that in looking at the scoring, essentially between the three respondents to the RFP, they were equal in service providing, but the cost was 40%
Lower,
less
yes.
with
Yeah.
this vendor. And that was
I
what put
did
them
see
over the
that.
edge in the rankings.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear from our student representatives, since they are
What do you guys think
impacted.
about?
You're talking about photographers for like
Yeah, like put your,
And school
Yeah, school
pictures that you
pictures.
can buy, you know, the packages.
Well, I know with ASB, the 3 years that I've been in it, we have not been happy with Life Touch because they have so many restrictions on us, and so I hope that this will be a little bit different. So I'm happy with it. We really don't like Life Touch.
I think the question would be, are there just as many restrictions on the new one, Leo's?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the problems we were talking about. Like recently, you know, prom's coming up, so that's what we were talking about. It was exactly the same.
So I think next time we negotiate the contract like this, we really need to talk to the ASB. I mean, maybe they were talked to before, but and get their input at one of the ASB, this all-city meetings, and hear what they have to say.
Yeah, because there's multiple contracts with different vendors, like for T-shirts and stuff like that. So I think it would be good to like let ASB know exactly like kind of get them in the deal, because it's kind of like a student representative like thing, you know, because we have to deal with them all year. So
Like the pop machines and things like that.
well, with like Bayside for like T-shirts and everything that we get from them. So
Okay, that's good. That's good input.
I would add to that, sorry, Jennifer Cabista and Sam Reed were involved in the rankings. I believe they helped develop the RFP as well. Yeah, so they helped develop the RFP, and then they helped to do the scoring of it.
which
President
they
Hines.
know a lot about. So.
Director Miller?
My question would be, the restrictions that they were talking about, is that part of the contract, or?
Unfortunately, most photographic agencies are very consistent in enforcing the same types of federal copyright laws and on their photography. And if those are the types of restrictions you're talking about, they tend to be very strict in reproducing photos and maintaining their ability to charge for photos. If there are other restrictions that you're talking about, that might be something that can be addressed.
So I would request that somebody talk to the ASB to make sure that those issues are addressed.
I'll make sure that Mr. Reed and I talk with Ms. French and any other ASB leader who has concerns, that we know what they are and can address them moving forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I do appreciate that the cost is significantly less. And to Director Winskill's concern, hopefully that will increase participation so that pictures are not cost prohibitive for families. So it'll be interesting to see if there's an increase in participation.
Can this be brought for next meeting? Because I know there's a lot of concerns and issues like they would like to put in feedback for. So if I'm able to like get feedback and then come back next meeting with it.
So this contract, this approval tonight allows us to start the negotiations of the contract, and so we have an opportunity to incorporate those, that feedback. And I'm not sure who to give it that feedback to. You want the feedback? Shannon, provide feedback.
Yeah, this is, the board vote tonight would authorize the superintendent to have the negotiation process, and that certainly means there's still negotiating to be done.
So we're not finalizing a contract.
Giving the superintendent authority.
Yes, and we think we've heard clearly that we want the ASB involved. Right. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 4-0. Item 10, other business. 10A, acceptance of constructability review for the Wilson High School Phase 2 project.
The Chief Operating Officer, this is always a hot mic. The Chief Operating Officer recommends that the Board of Directors review and accept the constructability review for the Wilson High School Phase 2 project and accept the recommendations of the architect for the constructability review.
I'll move approval.
second?
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 4-0. Item 10B, approval of change order number 3 and 4 with Neely Construction Company for the Foss High School field and track renovations.
The Chief Operating Officer recommends that the Board of Directors approve the Neely Construction and Cabinet Company change orders number 3 and 4 for the field and track renovations project at Foss High School.
I move approval.
Second?
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 4-0. Item 10C, first reading of strategic plan benchmarks for the 2015 through 2020 school years.
Recommendation, it's the first reading. It is anticipated no action will be taken at this meeting. I will read you the background statement. In conjunction with the amendment to policy 0100, the superintendent is proposing that the board of directors adopt the strategic plan benchmarks for the 2015 through 2020 school years to serve as identified measures for the board to monitor progress towards meeting the identified strategic plan goals. The current consideration says in June of 2014, the board voted to renew the 4 strategic plan goals through 2020.
Questions or comments? Director Miller.
Process. What's the suggestion? Since it's open for public comment, and the next meeting, do we come back with some additions, subtractions, and then vote on it? What?
Thoughts? Director Winskill, Vice President Vial?
I think we should be ready to vote by the 28th. We can make additions that night. We can amend it if we choose to do so, rather than continue to push it off because we've got budget to get done and a whole bunch of other things. That's just my suggestion.
So I agree with that, as long as we make sure we get, if there are any additions, subtractions in advance.
Agree.
So, yeah, I think, didn't this suddenly come on to the agenda kind of quick? Did I miss?
Well, when we did that with the
version?
study session, we talked about that.
Yeah, but I mean, on the agenda itself, though, I mean, so,
Yeah, it was a late edition.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
so I
So-
was able to read the material, but, you know, would have liked a little bit more time to digest it and everything else, too, so.
So just for clarification, then it sounds like what, so you've also talked about, so I would anticipate that if you had suggestions for changes, that you would get them to Dr. Garcia or myself, and then that we would have a process for getting it back out to you so that you as a board could agree that, yes, we would like to add this or we would like to subtract this. And so then that way, that gives us the next week to really go through that process. And then on the 28th, we would have public comment about, regarding the strategic benchmarks. We should also encourage the public that after having these presented, that if they wanted to bring any further suggestions, I really think that Dr. Garcia's done a pretty incredible job of getting out to all the citizens. So this isn't the first reading for the public. They've had them and been able to send them back. And so it seems to me that it would be, the most likely changes would come from the board. And then that if we get that in there, and then on the 28th, you could vote.
If we can get the information a week beforehand, so that just gives us a week to get it back to you. and all
The
that.
suggestion. So if we
Yes.
have a deadline for the board to say, if you have a suggestion, Dr. Garcia?
I think in order to get them in a week in advance, and then I think in order for that we can link them to the 28th agenda. Tanya, the timeline for the 28th agenda. Typically, we give you the information in the Friday report, as we did this time. This is for the previous agenda, so next week, Thursday is the 21st, so I would say we would need them probably no later than the 21st in order to give you those in the Friday report and make any suggested recommendations one way or the other.
May I ask?
Vice President Vial?
What I'd like to do is if anyone has any proposed changes, that they be set, that were set out separately from the benchmarks that we have before us, so that we can add or subtract them rather than being incorporated into the,
Okay. Yes.
into the report.
Yes.
So that we can decide
strike
whether
change.
there's something we agree, the changes be on a separate and numbered as to where they are and what they are, so that we can see what they are, so it's just a little easier for us, I think, and the public to figure out what we're doing. Thank you.
So I saw a vigorous head nod in the affirmative from Director Miller. Director Winskill, does that process work?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
I thought you were.
Vice President Vial, I heard you say that
That
timeline works for you.
Works for me.
It works for me as well. I would make one request, that if there is a recommendation for an additional benchmark that comes from the board, that it comes with attribution, so we know who has
Thank you.
made it.
Appreciate that, too.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, that moves us to item number 11, report to the board. I don't believe we have
None.
one tonight.
None tonight?
Takes us to item number 12, board comments and reports. Deputy Superintendent.
I just want to give you a quick update. A number of board meetings, forgive me, I don't have the exact date in front of me. We asked you to approve the request for a state waiver for the district to have 4 data days. And it is we've been recently notified, as I think today, that we have been granted that state waiver. And so we will be working with our teachers as well as our other staff to bring some revisions to the calendar that reflects those 4 waiver days. And so if you're watching at home, please know that we will do that as thoroughly and as fast as we possibly can to do that with the least amount of impact that we possibly can. So thank you very much for that support. I know that our school staff are going to greatly appreciate that opportunity to dive deeper into the data, action plan, monitor, and adjust.
All right, thank you. Student representatives.
So at Mount Tahoma, less than 50% of the graduating class are graduating, and a lot of staff are concerned. So is there they want to know, is there any academic plan we have for future seniors other than the new starter balance test or the things we've discussed tonight? Is there any academic plan?
That number does not match the number that we have, and we've been tracking specifically at Mount Tahoma student by student with all the schools do this, but Mount Tahoma has done a very thorough job, the administration. Student points of contact with the family that are confirmed points of contact, specific interventions that are provided. And so without knowing the specific number, and I'm not prepared to say what we anticipate the graduation number to be at Mount Tahoma, but unfortunately, we're looking for the Mount Tahoma number to go up. And last year it was a high than previous year, so we don't see that. But that's the specific framework for the academic support. In addition to that, all of our schools, and you've been notified of this, is our juniors that are credit deficient will automatically be enrolled in summer school, and their families will opt them out of that. And then we're working our way backwards ultimately into that. So each school has the ability to monitor each one of the graduation requirements. Some of the numbers that may have influenced that is sometimes we have students that have to take a state testing requirement over. So for example, collection of evidence for mathematics. And sometimes those results, you might only have 20 students that are taking that specific exam for that. And those results, I don't have them in front of them, could have led to the mislabeling of the current progress.
And also, I just kind of wanted to share an experience that I'm a part of. So there's a program called Project Unify, and Joelle and I volunteer for that. And I just want to say that's an amazing program. I think it's so nice to see, helping other kids who don't have, the same abilities as others. And it's just nice to see how happy they are if it's whether they're passing a ball or, scoring a goal. And I think that's a really nice program. If any way we can expand it or whatsoever. It's just a really nice program. And I'm really happy to be a part of that program. And it's really nice.
Director Hines, since I'm not familiar with it, can we have a report from the superintendent on a Friday report? Sure. Exactly what that is.
About the numbers for the Project Unify?
Just
Sure.
Yeah,
numbers
yeah,
and what
in
it
the
is.
background.
Oh, the videos.
Okay.
With the link
So
the video.
we definitely do that. It's our support with our special needs students, and they do the 50.
That's what I figured, but
Yep.
it'd be nice to get a summary of it.
There are also some really great videos that Mr. Vopel and his staff have done of our students who are involved with Project Unify, and those are really fantastic. We have some really amazing student athletes.
We had the final luncheon, was it last week? in Seattle, and it was great to see all the schools that participated across the I-5 corridor, so that's been great.
Yeah, share that. Sam can do it.
All right, I got kind of a long spiel, so just first off, one thing that I would like to address is a member that spoke to the public, one of the people from the audience. I actually know this person, Mr. Hunter. He spoke earlier. I would just like to speak on his character because I know him personally. He completely got me into sports just like he did Miss Leeper, so I would like to see him around because he was very influential at the Stewart community and keeping kids and what they need to do. So Another thing that I would like to speak on is McKinney-Vento. Right now, I have learned that the resource center across the street from Lincoln has been closed. So I would like, the closet has been closed, and so no supplies are being able to be given out. Now, I addressed my principals about this, and they said that what they're doing is actually all these resources have been dispersed to the schools. But one thing that I would like to see is like community connections. So in Federal Way, Miss Burke, my assistant, I think she's a principal, right? She said that in Federal Way they had vouchers for like Goodwill and Value Village, and so people could actually go and buy, and I think that gives like integrity and dignity to people, and so I would like to see us try to get like community memberships with them. Another thing that I would like to talk about, because I'm a senior and I had to do it, is career cruising. I would like to talk about the relevance of that, because honestly for me, I feel like life experiences lead you to what you want to do. I don't think that you personally can be told what to do based on a computer. I think it's a good program if you don't understand what you want to do, but if you've had those life experiences, it honestly is a waste of time. So, and I learned that it's at the district level, so I would like to talk about that also. And then also the Smarter Balance Test. There's a lot of controversy at Lincoln about that. There are students that are saying that they don't want to take it, and I get that. I would like to know what funding would be lost if 90% of students didn't take it. And also like what we can do to encourage kids to just bite the bullet and take it. So that is all.
Deputy Superintendent, would you speak to the SBAC?
So the SBAC results reached the same under the current administration and the current rules. The threshold is the No Child Left Behind AYP results. So one indicator is 90% participation, or 95%. Forgive me, I don't have the exact number in front of me. And if you are deemed a school that is unable to meet that threshold, you are then deemed a school of failure. And what that means from a dollar perspective, from a district level, is when we lost the waiver, we lost access to dollars, which was approximately $1.8 million here in Tacoma. And what that meant was we were not able to provide additional support and services to our students using that $1.8 million. The theory behind it was that the outside providers would be able to do that. What we saw, unfortunately, locally is a number of them were unable to fulfill that. And so those dollars are actually starting to come back to us with a short timeline of how to spend them. And so they're not reaching the students that actually they were intended for.
Right. So forgive me if I'm incorrect, but people are saying that if we lose the funding, there's no more state tests. But I know that that's wrong, because you always have to have a state test, right? Okay.
So the dilemma is for you, the students that are currently in juniors, is that they have not taken a formal action yet that says that the SBAC is going to replace the HISP results and there. So when they have indicated that, and so what the juniors are in a place that many of them already have a bank HISP score.
Right.
And so that will meet that threshold. But for every other student in future years, that is the result of where they are able to meet graduation requirements. Now, currently, our students can also use that score as an alternative to demonstrate that they have met proficiency in a variety of other settings. At younger ages, the law currently says that if you don't meet, if you're at a level 1 in those earlier grades, then there's mandatory actions that have to be taken by the school and the family to consider remediation or retention. And so there's definitely consequences. But you have just more clearly articulated the dilemma that we all face.
Right, okay. Is there any way that we're fixing that, though? Because everybody that I've talked to thinks that that means that there's no more state tests. And I'm like, you guys, there's no way that's going to happen, ever. I was like, they will come up with one no matter what we do.
It's not a matter of whether they come up with one, because it's there.
It's there.
It's
Yeah.
there. And
There
so
are no plans
as the
to eliminate
legislation,
it.
and so when you ask, what are we doing? This board has taken courageous action of being advocates both at the state level as well as the national level to try to redefine what the rules are to be more equitable, allow multiple measures that allow students to demonstrate that proficiency.
Good question.
And do you know if we have to the comment about working with Goodwill on vouchers, if that's something that we've undertaken?
I don't know anything about
I can
using the
answer that
vouchers.
a little bit too, since I was involved in that world, I guess. Goodwill doesn't have the capacity to be able to distribute those kinds of vouchers that are needed. I was really disappointed when the clothing bank was shut down, and according to what I heard, it was because Title I funds could not be used for that. I would like to see somebody look back into that, because it is a vital need for our students that are experiencing homelessness to make sure they're accepted. So, you know, if somebody could look into that, and yeah, you can approach Goodwill and Salvation Army, but boy, that's asking for a lot of clothing to get our students what they need.
Yeah. It's been about a 3-year process where we've worked with the Title I folks to have it an allowable expense, and they definitely have said no. And that distribution of resources has seemed to be the best alternative to make sure. And what we're, it seems that the work that we're going to have to do as a district is making sure that students know and have access and can get access to the, to the materials that are still there. So we can't distribute the clothing. We can't have a person that does that, but it doesn't mean that we can't provide students the information about how to access the clothing.
So part of the issue is the student accessing clothing from the school itself is a barrier, and they don't want to be seen getting clothing
Yeah,
from the school.
and I don't mean from the school, but I just mean, I hear you,
Yeah.
but to get them in close enough to a school that they can have access to it.
I haven't seen it.
Sorry.
Oh.
One thing Assistant Superintendent Russolini and I wanted to remind folks, including our students, is that while that there is still the Help a Student Fund, which is run through the partnership office, where needs can be met for students, including through the purchasing of items where you're not having to do that at your school. So the Help a Student Fund continues to be run out of the partnership office.
I think we just need to look more into that to make sure our students are served, so they don't have to identify what their home situation is.
I agree.
And perhaps that's an item we could take to our partners at the foundation.
Sure.
That's what I was gonna suggest, that we look for one of the larger nonprofits or opportunity to set up something where we get community contributions and somebody helps
Having
us
it
out.
somewhere in the community so
Yeah, that-
people can access.
and I think that might be something the foundation would be more than willing to take a look at.
Anything else?
Great, thank you
Yeah,
guys. No,
Good-
it's
Good things on the
it's
list tonight.
become a very big part because in AP government, Mr. Bowling, you guys know Mr. Bowling, he has made our project do a campaign for something that's important, and so I really wanted to get on board with this. So if I could get any information from you guys also, that would be very vital to my project also.
Absolutely. Oh, and did you recently get accepted to a university?
Yes, I did.
Would you like to make that announcement publicly?
I will be attending the University of Puget Sound with a $45,000 scholarship.
Congratulations.
And Florence also been accepted.
Well, no, I'm still a junior.
That's
Yeah.
I forgot.
But I really want to attend UW Seattle.
Okay, well, we'll work on University of Puget Sound for you next year.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Director Miller.
I've been asking for a report on truancy for a while now, and so I'd really like to put that forward somewhere. Superintendent's report, a report to the board, something like that, because of the concerns. And once again, Kenny-Vento is a part of that too, and the issues they go through. So if we could, Mr. President, if we could make that request, I'd sure appreciate it. And also, I like
Before I
to
move on, so is that something you could provide in a Friday report? Or would you like
No.
to have that as a?
I would like to see that as a report to the board
Okay.
during one of our meetings.
Yes.
Yes,
So we will
thank you.
schedule that.
So that I can get an idea what specific information about the truancy program would be useful for the board to know, an overall number. For example, would you like a report on the overall number of petitions filed this year? overall number of student interventions, budgetary
Yes.
data? Okay.
What's being done, what grade levels, those kinds of things. So we have get to know your district better.
Okay.
Well, I would like to segue on that. If we could have a copy of exactly what we're required to do under the state rules and what the OSPI rules are, so that we get a context for the numbers, I would appreciate that.
Sounds like you all will have the opportunity to meet Renee Hamasi, our Assistant General Counsel, who handles truancy. It's about 30% of her workload right now, and she is came to us from a state agency where she was advising school districts across the state, and so I think that I will work with
That'd be
her to
cool.
help present you the information, as well as Miguel Villarhermosa, who is the administrator over the truancy program.
So would you prefer it as I'm hearing that you want it as a report to the board, so it means that we do need to take a collective look at the calendar and figure out when to schedule it. So it has been on our notes, we just haven't had an opportunity to fit it in.
And I leave that to the board president and vice president.
Sounds
as
good.
you
Yeah.
meet with the
We will-
superintendent.
On
We'll get
behalf
it
of Ms.
scheduled.
Hamasi, I would ask that if we could do it in the end of June or July, so that she has the opportunity to finish out this year's truancy petitions and have information for you that has the entire school year, I think that would probably be beneficial.
If that's taking 30% of her time, I think that's
Yeah.
something we need to look at.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, I'm going to do a shout out to Ms. Rossellini. I was actually at the educator fair a while ago. My goodness.
Fun.
Incredible number of blue shirts out there, just literally grabbing people as they were walking down the aisle. And I actually was very nicely booted out of the way a few times because they needed to talk to the person I was talking to. And so I said, thank you for letting me know. And Lynn, great job. It was absolutely amazing. We were much better than anybody else in the dome.
Thank you. And come back next year, we're going to be even better.
Oh, I don't know how that can be. All I got.
Vice President Vial.
Thank you. I agree with Director Miller. I was there, and I just couldn't believe the presence that we had. And I even got hauled in by Jennifer Troffler to help recruit a teacher and give the spiel about where we're going and where we are as a district, and that was fun. I want to give a shout out to some people in our district that we forget, who are true heroes. And this is a sad thing, but I'm thankful that we have these people. The last 3 weeks, our district has been touched with sadness with the loss of a child of a teacher and grandchild of one of our principals, and the death of 2 of our students, one at Fernhill and one at Baker. And these people I want to say thank you to. I was over at Baker, or our crisis team. They do an amazing job. They go out, they work with the students, they work with the staff, and I think when we start talking about unsung heroes, they truly are in this district unsung heroes. And I just want to say thank you, because I just saw how stretched they were and how intent they were at Baker and making sure that they were taking care of the staff and taking care of the kids. So I just want to say from me, and I think probably I can reflect the board, thank you for what they do.
I think Mr. Page left. He snuck out before I got.
Oh, the crisis response team belongs to Mr. Villarhermosa.
Yes.
Right, but I'm sorry, I'm segueing to my comments, and I was going to
Sorry.
give Mr. Page a shout out. We were at the CTE end of year celebration a couple weeks ago, and just phenomenal, the work that he's doing with his team to prepare students. One young man in particular works for Wells Fargo, and if Mr. Vopel doesn't do a story on him, I think we're missing out on a huge opportunity. His goal was to be CFO of Wells Fargo, and there's no doubt in my mind he's probably a year away. He just has done incredible things, overcome incredible adversity. He was an ELL student here. Family moved to the United States to take advantage of the opportunities that our country provides, and he was just an incredibly enthusiastic, driven young man. He had everything mapped out, finishing college, getting his MBA, and he was the top teller in Washington State.
Yes. It was
Yes,
amazing.
he was the top teller in Washington State. Yes, he was at age 19. It was just incredible, and so exemplary of the work that Director Page is doing. And that's that. So, Superintendent, Director Winskill, did you have any?
No
comments?
comment. No-
Okay.
no report.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? We have a study session here, May 21st at 6 p.m. next Thursday, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks for a regular board meeting on Thursday, May 28th. And with that, we are adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry, the gavel. Director Miller.
Yes, we do under rules. I move that the.
Oh, did we adopt that?
Yeah,
All
we
right.
did. It's
Okay.
it's in our rules.
Are we going to practice? All right.
Yes.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I will move that the Board of Directors adjourns this meeting.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Formalistic.
All right.
Actually, say we operate under Robert. Yeah.